Hi everyone, I'm Mark Waldron, and my project is titled The Breaded Pork Tenderloin Sandwiches Folkways. So, how did I decide on this topic? Well, it actually started with a moment of realization. After moving back to Indiana following 8 years away, living in Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee, I went to an Indiana State Fair convention. I saw the breaded pork tenderloin sandwich on a menu and suddenly thought, I haven't seen this thing in years. It hit me that I had completely forgotten about it, and even more, that I never saw it while I was away. That sparked the central question of this project. Why is this sandwich so specific to Indiana? That curiosity set everything in motion. The breaded pork tenderloin sandwich traces its origins to the early 20th century and the culinary traditions of German and Hungarian immigrants who settled throughout the American Midwest, particularly in Indiana. Indiana's settlement pattern during the 1800s helps explain how these foodways took root. The state was settled in 3 waves. First, the South, by migrants from Kentucky and Tennessee, then the Central region, by settlers from southern and central Ohio, and finally, the North, during the height of the Industrial Revolution, which attracted a wave of German and Hungarian immigrants seeking factory work. Many of these newcomers arrived via Pennsylvania and northern Ohio, bringing with them traditional recipes such as schnitzel, thinly pounded, breaded, and pan-fried meat cutlets like the Austrian Wiener Schnitzel, typically made from veal. In Huntington, Indiana, a Hungarian immigrant named Nick Fryenstein played a pivotal role in adapting this old-world dish into a Midwestern staple. Running a small food cart that served local factory workers, Nick realized that veal schnitzel, usually eaten with a knife and fork, was impractical for laborers on the go. He made 2 key modifications, replacing veal with the more affordable, locally abundant pork tenderloin, and serving the cutlet between slices of bread, creating a hearty, portable meal that embodied both immigrant ingenuity and the agricultural character of the region. This act of culinary hybridization transformed an old-world staple into a distinctly American, deeply local invention. In 1908, after the success of his new creation, Nick converted his food cart into a permanent establishment, Nick's Kitchen, which still operates in Huntington to this day. When I first began the project, I thought it would be mostly historical, like tracing the origin of the sandwich and identifying its creator. But as I dove into the research, the project took a more ethnographic shape. It became clear that this wasn't just about when the sandwich was made, but how it's remembered and how it represents regional identity and immigrant adaptation. It shifted from being a history of the sandwich to a much more folkloristic exploration of foodways. As I worked through the project, I became especially interested in answering why the sandwich flourished in Indiana. That led me to examine the large Hungarian and German immigrant populations who brought pig farming into northern Indiana and the kinds of community rituals, like church dinners and county fairs, that helped solidify the sandwich's place in local food culture. At the same time, some of my original research questions fell away. I initially wondered whether corn became a major Indiana crop to support pig farming, but that became too tangential. I also tried to trace the sandwich's spread to other Midwestern states like Iowa and Illinois, but those leads were largely anecdotal. In folklore, foodways refers to the cultural, social, and economic practices surrounding food preparation and consumption. The breaded pork tenderloin sandwich fits perfectly within this framework. It's a living artifact, deeply tied to agricultural heritage, working-class pride, and vernacular tradition. Recipes aren't standardized. They're passed down, modified, and passionately debated in households, diners, and online food forums. The sandwich becomes not just food, but a conversation, a performance of identity. And let's talk about that size. The sandwich's comically oversized cutlet, often far exceeding the bun, does more than draw attention. It functions as a material folk symbol, representing generosity, humor, and abundance. I started to ask questions I hadn't anticipated at the beginning. When did the cutlet become so exaggerated? Are there places that serve non-fried versions? Has anyone broken away from the classic hamburger bun? These weren't part of my initial proposal, but they added richness to the study and pointed to the dynamic, evolving nature of folk food. Throughout the 20th century, the sandwich became a staple in local taverns, diners, and state fairs. It thrived not just because it was delicious and affordable, but because it mirrored Midwestern values, resourcefulness, thrift, and community pride. Its popularity paralleled the rise of pork farming, making it a culinary reflection of the region's economic and agricultural roots. Over time, it became more than a meal. It became a tradition, something that people grew up with, passed on, and returned to. And that's what folklore is about. The things we carry forward, even when we don't realize why. Working on the bibliography was a mixed experience. On one hand, it was exciting to see how many people were talking about the sandwich: bloggers, YouTubers, food critics, and local historians. These vernacular sources gave me a window into how the sandwich is lived and loved. On the other hand, there weren't many peer-reviewed articles focused directly on the pork tenderloin, which made it clear that this was a topic in need of scholarly attention, particularly from a folklore perspective. In recent years, the sandwich has seen a revival, fueled by nostalgia, local pride, and the slow food movement. Chefs and food writers have re-examined its roots, exploring regional variations and its cultural role as a working man's meal. Today, you'll find versions with spicy breading, fancy buns, or unexpected toppings. But at its core, the sandwich remains a tribute to the Midwest's immigrant past and agricultural present. In folkloric terms, the sandwich thrives through performance, in the acts of cooking, serving, and telling stories. It's a staple at county fairs and a badge of honor at local diners. Whether you're eating it for the first time or the 100th, the breaded pork tenderloin sandwich is more than food. It's identity, it's memory, it's Indiana. Thank you